Now on UK Health Radio, treat yourself to an upgrade. Pack away your low self-esteem. Leave behind that empty feeling. Stow your fears and doubts in the overhead locker. And go from stress to authentic success with Danielle Sachs.
Hello to you. How are you doing? Another week, another show from Stress to Authentic Success. And today, as always, I have this amazing expert, a beautiful lady called Linse Allen, who is the owner and founder of Refine and Grow. She is a business coach with over 15 years of experience in the nonprofit and management consulting business. And she is specializing in training and development, all sorts of organizational strategies, designs, project management, and foremost, change management. And I'm going to talk to her, of course, about stress, about change, because she has worked with companies such as Amazon, Microsoft, Mitsubishi, Fred Hutchinson's Cancer Research Center, a lot of people. You know, she really has worked on a high level, even with like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So I'm going to talk to her about everything that she has learned, because her company, Refine and Grow, offers free resources, but also well-paid services, such as corporate training, toolkit subscriptions, career coaching, speaking engagements. And what intrigues me the most is that Linse Allen is the author, and she has just brought out her book, I believe, since July the 1st. She's the author of Refine and Grow, which lessons learned on navigating the business world. And I believe she and I have quite a few things in common. She has also put a methodology together to rise above all the common pitfalls, improve your reputation, and regain control of your career. So I know that she and I have a lot to talk about, because she has learned quite a few lessons through her professional life, but also through her personal life, through personal crises. And isn't that what is the most intriguing and inspirational for each and every one of us, is how people around you are living their lives, overcoming their crises, their obstacles. We have so many lessons to learn from others and from ourselves. So I look forward to speak to Linse just now. But before we do that, I just want to say to her, she also has a podcast called Refine and Grow. It's all about refine and grow in her world. And I'm also looking forward to be interviewed on a podcast about what you and I are talking about every single week, and how I want to inspire you every single week through my radio show, my podcast, but of course also on being interviewed on other past podcasts, and inspire and motivate you wherever you are in the world, in whatever situation you are today. We are here to help you, to support you, to motivate you. And I just had this week a client of mine who's been going through an really big challenge in her life with the health of her husband, the health of her son, all in one. And I so appreciate other people's courage and consciousness on how to move through these obstacles, on how to shift out of that chronic stress. And that is my aim, my goal, my purpose is, of course, to help you navigate through your stress, to overcome that stress and let your essence navigate your life so that you can get to know authentic success and what authentic success is all about. And so I'm really looking forward to this conversation this week, and I am sure that it's going to inspire you and motivate you. And you know that feedback is always welcome. Questions are always welcome. So when you listen to this interview and there's any question, any insight popping up, just let me know so that we can every week, again and again, keep on inspiring you and motivating you. I will come back after this little break just now talking to Linse Allen.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Welcome back, and I'm going to go straight away into this interview because there's so much we have in common and we can talk about. Welcome, Linse Allen. I am so pleased to have you today.
Thank you, Danielle. I'm excited to be here.
And when I say we have a lot in common, let's just get into the stress kind of thing, because tell me and the audience your story about how you went from stress to authentic success to the person with the purpose and everything that you have today. How did it start? What is your stressful situation or crisis? What has that been?
Yeah. So for me, I think throughout my journey of life, there's been levels of awareness. So you become more and more aware. And for me, the first level of awareness was how to go from stress to authentic success at work. And once I learned the principles of how to apply this to work life, then I went through my own personal crisis and journey to get those same principles applied to my personal life.
Wow.
And bring that all together.
And what would be that big stress that you had in your work life?
So in my work life, I was just not happy. I was easily triggered by the amount of stress and everything that had to get done. I was one of those people who thought if I just worked long and hard enough, I would get the whole to-do list done. And I never did. And I let that to-do list control me and put so much pressure on me that I would sometimes snap at people. I just didn't have a reputation that I could be proud of. And I changed jobs, and I saw that as an opportunity to build the type of reputation that I would be proud of. And the role that I ended up going into was as a management consultant. And so management consultants, specifically, I specialized in operations like processes, tech systems, roles and responsibilities, org charts, and also doing kind of project and change management that comes with that. And I just wanted to build this reputation that I could be proud of. It was my first job out of college, where I was so easily triggered in my 20s and feeling much more emotional and pressured, was working for a nonprofit and running the behavioral health department there. And I had to do the systems, the procedures, all of that. And you're working with a team, nonprofits don't have as much money. Maybe the resources aren't as strong. And I just didn't like how I was seen there and how I left there. And I wanted to change it. And so when I went into management consulting, that was really my ultimate goal. That was the career I wanted to build. And the nonprofit was a stepping stone. I knew a couple of people at this company, and I went to them for advice, and I respected their reputation, and I wanted to emulate that. So I found people I wanted to be like. I surrounded myself with them, and I asked them how, specific questions about how to navigate the business world. And the information and advice they gave me isn't what my gut told me to do. And I stepped out of my comfort zone and said, well, I didn't like the reputation I built for me, so let me try the way that they're telling me to do this. And, the book that I've written, Refine and Grow Lessons Learned on Navigating the Business World, is the top 10 pieces of advice I received from these mentors. And the first one was, you don't know what you don't know. So I thought I had to know everything. It was the first time I shifted my mindset to, oh, maybe because I've never been a management consultant, it's okay that I don't know everything and have all the answers. And what if I'm just honest and authentic about that? And that took a lot of pressure off, a lot of stress.
Agree. It's strange that you say that, because even in daily life, in our social life, at the dinner table with friends, it's okay if you don't know what they're talking about, let alone in a working space where, everybody maybe expects you to know everything, but it's okay if you don't. And if you ask help, isn't it?
Yeah, it's actually seems to be preferred. So when I realized I don't know everything, the next step was, how do I learn these things? Oh, I could learn from the people who have been doing this for a long time. So I set up what we called meet and greets with them. And just ask them for 30 minutes over coffee. Tell me what you do. Tell me about advice you have for me as someone new coming in, new to this industry, to this career. What advice would you have for me? And those people not only appreciate it, it was like they were waiting for someone to, like, I've been doing this for 15, 20 years, and why aren't more people asking me for my advice? So it ended up that 30 minutes to ask one or two questions wasn't even enough time, because they had so much goodness to share with me. And they ended up following me through my career, checking in with me to see how I was doing, if I needed help, those kinds of things. And so it's interesting that by just owning and being authentic about the fact that I was new and I didn't know everything helped me build a much better reputation than coming in and acting like I did know everything and I didn't need help.
Is it not, Lindsay, that it's your vulnerability, your honesty, your integrity that demands their respect, and they give it automatically because they appreciate that you are that vulnerable? Is that in the working place not more and more accepted?
Yeah, I think, well, especially for women, because we're really taught not to show emotions in the workplace, and vulnerability can be scary, and it can, men aren't necessarily as vulnerable in the workplace day to day, and it could be seen as a weakness. But I actually think at least in a one-on-one setting, that authenticity and vulnerability is the key to building, a great reputation.
And also to experience less stress, to shift out of your stress, because it helped.
That's right.
That's what you're saying. It's a lesson that you learned.
Yeah. All of the lessons really revolve around having more peace. And the way that you have more internal peace is through releasing that stress in your work life and your personal life. So all the lessons are about taking some of that pressure, learning to go with the flow. I feel like most of it for me, most of the transformation was about letting go of control. That was really the big thing I had to learn. I cannot control the outcome of everything. And when you go with the flow, instead of trying to control the outcome over and over again, oh man, the amount of weight that's lifted off of your shoulders when you view it as something that, you are kind of directing, but not controlling.
Beautifully said. So would that be, because we don't have the time to discuss the 10 lessons, but if you would pick out your biggest lesson that you got out of, how many years are we talking about? How many years of work life are we talking about? So I've got about 20 now. When I wrote the book, it was about 15 years of experience and the best lessons that I received from these mentors during that time. Okay. And so that the biggest one, or the one that has had the most impact on you, would that be that control thing?
Well, there isn't one specifically about control. I feel like it's a theme that goes throughout all 10. But I think my favorite, it's chapter 5 and it's called be okay with awkward silence. And so the same mentor who told me you don't know what you don't know when I was onboarding, coming into a new role, said, when the conversation is over at work, it's okay to just stop talking and not fill in that silence. Give people a moment to think, to process, to speak. And so I really learned to bite my tongue, which was hard for me because I am a recovering people pleaser and I did not want them to feel awkward. So I would always be the first to fill in the silence. And just a lot of true connection and good information came from listening and instead of always trying to be heard or fill in those awkward silences, because they're not, once you really try out that technique, it's not awkward anymore. It doesn't have to be awkward.
You know that it's one of the reasons why I don't edit my radio shows and my interviews is because it's okay to have silence, but it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But it's interesting how uncomfortable it can be for so many, especially in the workplace.
Mm. Can you give us an example?
Yeah. So, I think probably one of the best examples is that I was a project manager during COVID for Amazon's global real estate and facilities team. And that team owns the corporate offices. So we were not in charge of like the warehouses, where people that are ordering off Amazon.com, their packages are put together. This was like whoever's working at a headquarters. But we had offices all across the world. So we're working with the EMEA team, Europe, Middle East, Australia, and then also our APAC. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I had to facilitate meetings where I was going to meetings with leaders at Amazon, and then we had to push the information down to the broader team. So there were a couple hundred people on the call, and we would go through the agenda where each team lead would kind of say what their plan was for the next couple of weeks. Because this is early days. This is like March, which is when it hit the United States. And I was the facilitator, and I would wait for people to finish, and then I would pause to see if they needed, a little bit longer. And people would come off of mute. I think, first of all, they were not used to working remote. They were used to being in person.
Yes.
But people would come off of mute and think that like audio had dropped. And really all I did was count to 7. It's like 7 seconds. It wasn't that long. So, and so I knew that that several people, because it wasn't the same person, it was different people, saying like, hello, are people there or whatever, that it was making a lot of people uncomfortable. And what I was trying to do was give the person who was presenting enough space to think, because they're already nervous presenting to 200 people over the phone when that's not the norm. And their role changed during COVID. It wasn't what they did day to day, because we were like a task force trying to figure out what this was. And just everybody was so nervous. And so what's happening? Are people coming back to the office? Are they working from home forever? When is this going to be over? All of those questions, that they weren't even, they couldn't handle a pause. They just wanted to know what was next.
Well, I think a pause of 7 seconds can seem a lifetime for many people.
Yeah.
It's only when you get used to in counseling and coaching and therapy and all that, and in guiding people, in being there for people and being present, that's where we appreciate the silence and we know the effect of silence. But what did it do to you? How did it bring that inner peace and less stress to you?
I ended up telling the whole group, I wait a few seconds afterwards in case this person has more to add. So when I set that expectation clearly, then it stopped, right? But for me, I felt like I was less in the I call it like a tornado that happens in these corporate environments, not just Amazon, but any company like that, a Google, a Microsoft, a Facebook, these big, large IT corporations, they're very fast paced.
Yes.
Very fast paced. And I just felt like I was significantly less stressed than everyone by being okay with that slower pace and recognizing that what comes from, not having a lot of patience and feeling like you always have to be doing something, but you don't necessarily have all your information yet, is you end up duplicating efforts. You put a lot of effort into work that ends up getting thrown away because not all the information was known, and the new information that comes in changes what needs to be done. So I felt very much like in control is what I would say, which is funny, is that I learned to let go of control and then felt more in control, at least of my own internal peace and mindset in the workplace.
Wow. So beautiful. Now, can you tell me, why are you calling the book, the business, and the podcast all Refine and Grow? Where does that come from? Because that intrigues me. Why that title?
That's a great question. So Refine and Grow, the brand is the word refine and the word grow in different colors. And then the and symbol has two circles around it. And those circles represent refine and grow, which I say is a cyclical kind of pattern that I see in the workplace with both businesses and individuals. And it's kind of like my methodology for growing and applying your skills. So I was put into a new role, a management consulting role, and I had to grow the skill set. And that's a painful thing. I call it growing pains. I had to learn how to be a consultant, and it was probably 18 months of being on a steep learning curve just to get like the hard skills and the soft skills down, and really 3 years, I would say, before I mastered it. But with each skill, like, how do I facilitate a meeting? How do I create a presentation? How do I market something to my audience? Each of those skills I grew. And then once I had the skill, I refined it to meet the needs of the audience or the company's culture or whatever the case may be, or the specific circumstance. I refined that skill to fit. And I think companies go through it too, where they'll grow. So for example, when technology came around, one of the companies that I had consulted for, they were distributing and selling magazines. Well, hard copy magazines and newspapers were not in anymore. This is 15 years ago, but so they needed to make a big change to putting their information, in an app and on the internet. And that was a huge growth cycle for them. And then once they did that, it was about refining. How do they fine tune and perfect these big changes that they've introduced into the organization?
In that change management, that change mindset, perception, everything in that process, what was their biggest stress? Is that like the fear of not being good enough, the fear of not being able to do your all to-do list? Is it how did you see that in the people that you were guiding and helping, what was their biggest stress?
I think, so from a change management perspective, change practitioners study the Kubler-Ross change curve, which is the same cycles that you go through in grief, but you go through those as well in change at work. So anytime there's a change, a disruption to your routine, the automatic response of a human is fear, is pushing back against any sort of disruption, because that means more time, more effort, learning new skills. And then they go to the negotiation of, maybe I'll make this change to my role, to my business. Maybe I won't. I don't know. I haven't decided, but they're at least open to it, where initially it's like denial. So it's kind of coming out of that and having awareness. And then there's a phase of anger when they realize they have to do it. a phase of kind of like sadness when they're doing it and, they've lost the battle. And then we get to acceptance. And so I think one of my colleagues had likened it to, when there's change happening, it's almost like you're sitting in a room with the lights on and somebody turns off the lights. And we don't know how to get them back on. And so I think it's just acknowledging the fear and having open conversations about what the change will look like, what the timeline will be, how they'll be provided training and resources and communication to make sure they don't fall through the cracks and it's not all on their shoulders. But yeah, any time you're adding something to someone's plate, which change does in the workplace or in your personal life. Yeah. I think people need to be validated that their concerns are legitimate and real, and that doesn't change the outcome, right? But I think it's again, comes back to trying to control an outcome that you can't control.
And I think your first lesson, we discussed in the beginning about you don't know what you don't know, is actually quite already applicable there. Because if in change, you don't know what you don't know, and that's maybe even your first step to acknowledge. So
exactly.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
really beautiful. So tell us a little bit about your journey from stress to authentic success. How do you see authentic success? What is that to you? Living a purposeful, meaningful, fulfilling life. What is authentic success to you?
Yeah, I think that, as I said at the very beginning of the interview, I went through a couple of phases of awareness and becoming more authentic. And the first was the workplace. But I think where I really went to authentic success was in the personal crisis and journey that I went through. So, let's see.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was 37. I'm 41. So 5-ish years ago. Or no, actually, I'm going to go a year before that. My father passed away from cancer, and he had cancer in, 2011 and beat it and had been in remission for 7 years, and it came back, and the doctor thought, we'll just do surgery. It's no big deal. It's in a small place, and things, it went up and down until 6 months later, it was like he's only got a couple months left. Yeah. And when I went back to, I'm the oldest of 3. So my mom, sister, brother, our spouses, some of our kids were all in this one house, taking care of them day to day, saying goodbye. Yeah. And I just felt a lot of, anger and sadness, a lot of those grief, complex emotions. And so afterwards, I ended up going to a counselor because I was asking a lot of questions about, I think, life's purpose and how to be happy. And I learned a lot about codependence.
Nice.
Yes. And then I recognized that so many of the lessons that I had learned in business were helpful because I had this sort of codependent relationship with my job, in that I was trying to control and valuing what my job thought of me more than what I think of me. And I started to watch the movie The Secret from a long time ago, over and over. And I said, now what is my purpose? And I started researching and found like 7 or 8 general life purposes that you can have. And the one that resonated the most with me was to help people.
Of course.
And I recognized, okay, I can help people. And I was, I had loved my job as a management consultant for so long, I think because I was learning so much, but I had come to a point where I was 15-ish years in, almost, close to 20. And I did not, I didn't feel like I was learning as much anymore. I wasn't being challenged and I wasn't happy. I wasn't excited. I didn't want to go to work. And I just felt kind of depressed all around. And so when I realized, okay, my purpose is to help people. And I thought, there's so many different career paths that you could take to help people. I could be a doctor or a nurse. I could be a teacher, but that wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people in the workplace because I'm thinking, well, your average person spends 40 hours a week over 40 plus years of their life in the workplace. So that is really where I could help them. And I ended up writing the book and starting the Refine and Grow business and doing, the executive coaching, facilitating workshops, a podcast, all of these things where I was sharing my knowledge and doing coaching and training and development, but finding platforms that would scale so that I could reach more people. And I just figured I do my purpose and then the money comes.
Yes.
That you find a way for it. It just works out if you're doing what you're meant to do. And so I think when I identified that I did have a purpose, when I identified what it was and started doing it, that's when I became authentic.
Yes, I agree. But also, it goes both ways. The more authentic that you are, if you are aligned with who you are and what you're here meant to do, then the money, the success comes naturally as well.
That's right.
So
that's right.
It's in both ways, which is so beautiful because you become more authentic because you're in it, but also because you're in it, you become more successful. And whatever that success might be, whether it's your book, whether it's a business, whether it's, a platform, it doesn't, whether it's being a grandmother and leaving a legacy, whatever it is, it can be anything. And so thank you for that because it really explains it well. So is there a tip that you would give to someone who's listening now and who says, wow, you have your book, is there a tip that you would say that could help someone to go in that first step from stress to authentic success?
Well, for me, it was accepting that I had a purpose. I think everyone has a purpose. And I tell some of my coaching clients, sometimes in the business world, I was working alongside someone who clearly was an attorney and had no business being in the business world. And so if you're unhappy at work, just be honest with yourself, recognize that, and recognize that if you have a purpose, you can make your job part of that. Yeah. And then every day you're waking up doing what you love. And the purpose doesn't have to be, I'm a data analyst. It's broader than that. It's helping people. It's giving back to the community. It's finding, a cause that, like a social justice cause or whatever that you want to link yourself to. It can be teaching or having a family, but figure out what that purpose is and then do it in as many ways as you can. So you go, what's my purpose? What are the skills that I have? And I had all these management consulting skills. And then I just decide I'm going to open up multiple lines of revenue, potential revenue where I'm using my gift and my purpose. And then whatever takes off is what works. I think you have to save up some money. It's for some people, it's not realistic because of health insurance or whatever the case is. But it was a couple of years of planning for me and saving up and then stepping out on my own with just blind trust that if I was doing my purpose,
it's true.
If I was doing what I was meant to be doing, it would work out. And I didn't need to know how. I knew what my goal was. But I didn't need to know exactly how I was going to get from point A to point B.
Eh? That's what you're saying. We don't need to know the how if we just, know the why.
Know where you're going.
Yeah,
yes,
and the why.
Exactly.
That's the thing. Now, Linse, time goes fast, but is there a statement, a quote, something that you live by that has helped you those last 4 or 5 years into living authentic success?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the best quotes that I've heard is, it came from a colleague who had given me a compliment where she said that I was wise. And I said, thank you the first time. And the second time she said it, I said, well, what exactly does that mean? because I wasn't really sure. And she said, wisdom is learning from others' mistakes.
Hmm.
And so I try to not only learn from my own journey, but everybody else's. And I think that means that I learn at a faster rate, and the lessons are broader. You know, the best way to learn is through your own experience, but you can save yourself some pain if you can learn from somebody else's journey.
I agree. That's beautiful. That's
Thank
beautiful,
you.
because most of us think of our lessons that we have from ourselves, not really from, and I have to agree, and maybe you can confirm that. My experience, I learned so much from my clients. I learned
Yeah.
so much from their stories, their realities, their challenges, that journey is, and so actually what you say there is really, I can really confirm that, and thank you for that, because up until now I didn't really see that as a quote or as something, something to live by, but it's actually really true. So thank you for that. Linse, we can talk for hours. So
I know.
I just want to ask you something about maybe the book. Is there something that you want to share about the book, where they can buy it?
Yeah.
Where just share us that, so that people know where to go to. I'll have your website and everything, on our website, but is there anything you want to add here about the book?
Sure. So my publisher out of the UK is John Hunt Publishing, through their imprint business books. So it's on their website, but it's also on Amazon. And for information about like my company, the book, the podcast, all of that, you could just go to refineandgrow.com.
Okay, perfect. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for being so authentic, and for really, being truly you. You can see that in everything you do and in everything you say, in your nonverbal communication. So thank you for your energy. I really appreciate it. And I'll have a little break and come back just now.
Thanks, Danielle.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Welcome back to you, and thank you for listening in again. And as I promised you, a beautiful conversation it was, because Linse, as much as I, is having the purpose of helping others to stress less and to experience more success. And she is specialized more in the business aspect. So how to help people in their work life on how to overcome that stress. And for her, one of the first lessons that she had, and I really love that, is that awareness is, of course, everything, as much at work as in our personal life. And she says the first lesson that how she describes it is, you don't know what you don't know. Well, honestly, if you can embrace that, if you can let go of that, it will give you inner peace. It will give you a big aha moment, because it is so important to accept exactly the situation as it is. And I really appreciated her authenticity, her vulnerability in everything that she said. And that's why she's my cup of tea as a person. I can feel that, because when she talked about that fifth step that she was talking about being okay with the awkward silence, and she says even 7 seconds of silence can make a big shift in your awareness, in your feelings, in your being. And it's so true. In every connection, we always try to talk quickly and to talk more, and then we listen. And it is sometimes just so important to keep quiet and listen. And let me give you an example of what awkward silence can do. Let's just stop talking and give you a few seconds of silence and see what that does to you. Okay, that was just 5 seconds of silence. Now I'm going to ask you, what did that do to you? Did you feel awkward? Did you feel like you need to change the channel and do something else? Did you think that I wasn't available, that I wasn't there anymore? 5 seconds of silence in a conversation, in a connection, can really do something. People feel awkward because we are always used to noise. The noise in our lives is always there. And so that is just so important that we start changing that. We start changing that feeling of awkwardness around silence. And because Linse is quite specialized in change management, it was impressive to how she talked about that change, that fear of change is a stress to us, and how it becomes a process of mourning. Because every change in our lives and our routines is like a mourning process. You have first the denial, the anger, the sadness, and then there's the acceptance of what is, exactly what is. And I really, really, acknowledge that in my own life, it has been as well a process to accept change, to accept any stress that comes up, any fear that comes up when we are faced with change, when we need to change. And Linse was also talking about how important it is to discover our purpose. Now, of course, in my methodology, you need to go through a whole process before you can actually see your purpose and accept your purpose. But it was so beautiful how she was saying that we have to accept our purpose, identify our purpose, and just do it. Because once we stand in our purpose and we embrace our purpose, then that is what authentic success is all about. That's when the money comes anyway. And to finish off our conversation with Linse about the quote that she lives by, I really, really appreciated that, because she says that the wisdom is in the learning from other people's mistake. Now, most of personal development stresses that your wisdom is learning from your own mistakes. But isn't it true that we can all learn from other people's mistakes? Isn't that what I'm doing every single week? Talking to experts, to people who've experienced a crisis, a challenge, and that of their mistakes, we are learning lessons from that. And so I really enjoyed that. But of course, that doesn't mean that you can't learn from your own mistakes as well. But look outside of you, look in your environment and see from experts, from masters, from people who have been through, the breakdowns before they got the breakthrough. Go and have a book to read, go and listen to podcasts, go and see in books like Linse's book, Refine and Grow, where she had all these lessons that you and I can learn from. And I really believe that the book has a lot to offer. So if you want to read that book, please go and buy it on Amazon and whatever platform. You can go to a website, but also just look around you and see in your environment. I'm sure that you can learn as well a lot of wisdom in that, the mistakes that other people have made. what lessons can you learn from other people? So I'm going to leave you with that, because I really, really believe that there's a lot of wisdom in that we can learn from other people's mistakes. I am learning from other people's mistakes every single day in my practice. I learn from my clients. In my family, I learn from, my social life, my friends, my family. I learn from other people's mistakes. And so I trust that you find that quite inspiring and are going to do exactly the same. And I am going to leave you with this for this week, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye for now.
From Stress to Authentic Success was presented by Danielle Sachs. Join Danielle at the same time next week here on UK Health Radio. And meanwhile, for more on how to thrive in business and everyday life by being true to yourself, go to daniellesachs.com.